What's up guys, this is Derek aka SkyScope, and welcome to my Maplestory 2 CBT overview. So, last week I got accepted into the Maplestory 2 closed beta, avoiding the salty ship with all the salty sailors on it. And this is just my video coming to you guys bringing the, my thoughts and opinions on Maplestory 2 closed beta version. As you can see at the top of all the gameplay, it's going to say that this is a beta build and not a representative of the final product. But since they're getting us to close beta test it for all the things that are good or bad in the game, we kind of say that this is going to be near the final build in the game, and the only thing that's going to really be tweaked in the end is maybe some numbers and stuff like that. So without further ado, let me go ahead and just get into it. Now first, let me just say that in total, I am a huge Maplestory fanboy. I love Maplestory 1. I remember I even bought like the TCG cards because I love the artwork so much and I wanted to have it in some kind of a physical form. So I am definitely biased towards Maplestory, but that doesn't mean I'm not going to point out the game's obvious shortcomings, because A, I want to see the global version of Maplestory 2 do really well and be successful, and B, every game gets the smoke on this channel. So let's go ahead and start with the first things that you're going to be seeing when you log into Maplestory 2, which are the character customization and class selection. So in the CBT there were 8 playable classes: Knight, Berserker, Wizard, Priest, Archer, Heavy Gunner, Thief, and Assassin. Pretty much the 4 main classes of characters in Maplestory. Pretty much warriors, mages, rangers, and rogues. Now in the Korean version of the game there are actually 3 more classes, them being Striker, Runeblader, and Soulbinder. I really hope that these 3 extra classes come to the game pretty shortly after release, or even maybe on release, because you can actually see some references to the classes and some of their artwork in the closed beta and in some of the artwork and stuff that Nexon NA or Nexon Global is already putting out. So if we're seeing these characters so early, then hopefully we'll be able to play them pretty soon after the release. And as far as your base character customization, it's really good. There's actually a lot of costumes that I would take into late game and just keep the entire way through the game. The beginning character creation is pretty strong. It allows you for a good amount of customization. You can actually adjust your hair length and all that stuff, so character creation is pretty great. Now on to the art style and overall look and presentation of Maplestory 2. I actually really love the new take and making the game a 3D top-down kind of block style experience. I know that a lot of people are put off by this game's new art style, but as a successor to Maplestory 1, I gotta say, I couldn't love this art style more. It's brave with what it's doing. I really feel like a lot of people, like, their reasoning behind not liking this game's art style is just because they've gotten so annoyed with games like, Minecraft in the past, and they're so done with, the block style of things like so much. But to be quite honest, I never played a lot of, Minecraft, and I've never really even looked at, the Minecraft thing as being bad. So honestly, I really love this take on Maplestory, and I love the presentation. Now as for the story, it's pretty basic in the beginning, something darkness is looming over the Maple world. But to be quite honest, I love the fact that they put in, fully fleshed out cutscenes into the game. My biggest problem with these cutscenes though is that the dialogue comes so slow in points to where you would think that the cutscene is broken. So one of the big things I want to see changed about the story when it finally comes to full release is the time in between dialogue in the cutscene, because sometimes it's so painfully slow that sometimes I would just skip the cutscene because I'd honestly think that it was broken. As long as these things get fixed, I would definitely say pay attention to the story at least a little bit, because towards the end of the story it actually does start picking up some speed, and it actually does become pretty interesting. Also, I really loved the Pyrion story. I actually do love all the characters from Pyrion, and they do make you go to all the, you know, major towns and cities in Maplestory, so that's really cool and exciting. One thing that did irk me though was the fact that the epic quests, which are the story missions, would pretty much straight up level us from 0 to 50, which was max level in the game, and I'll get to that later. But you know, when it made us do those epic quests and it made us gain so much experience, I'm assuming that the experience gain is going to be tweaked down for the official release, but still, I feel like the story quests were so much of our experience that we really didn't even get to explore a lot of the really interesting maps that there are to, and it just kind of leaves the exploration up to, you know, the player themselves. So I would really like to see the EXP on the story quest toned back and, you know, replace that experience gain with some more, you know, side quests that allow us to explore more, because the world in Maplestory 2 is really beautiful. Now, the scope of activities that you can do in Maplestory 2 is very large, probably more than any MMO, I would say. There's exploring, dungeons, raids, PvP, minigames, fishing, gathering and crafting, housing, music, and a whole lot of customization. And that's still not even all the game has to offer for the player. And you would think that with all of these miscellaneous activities that some of them would be completely useless, but they're not. They all give a decent amount of EXP, you know, mini games, fishing, all of that stuff included. And actually, fishing is one of the best ways to obtain high level gear once you've maxed out your fishing. And not to mention that the game's trophy system is amazing. So you pretty much get trophies, which are, you know, the same thing as achievements in any other game in Maplestory 2, and you get them for doing literally anything and everything in the game. If you're just doing, you know, PvE content or PvP content and you're only focusing on that, you will never have as many trophies as, you know, someone who's doing a little bit of everything in the game. And you may go and say, you know, well, why should I care about trophies? Well, for one, some trophies lock you out of things, and two, trophies count towards your guilds and personal ranking, which I think is amazing because it makes Maplestory a game that's not only focused on, you know, your gear score or how good you are in raids or in PvP. I feel like Maplestory 2 is a true social game because of this trophy system, because they make everything meaningful. You know, I feel like Maplestory 1 was kind of advertised, like, remember those really old Maplestory commercials, if you remember them, where they would promote the game as a social game and they would have like these real life actors just doing these random things. And you know, when you get into Maplestory 1 and you play it, you're like, okay, I can socialize with people, but there's really not that much to do. Maplestory 2 is the complete opposite. I truly say that Maplestory 2 is one of the only true social games because it does indeed it rewards you for, like I said, every single thing that you do. And I think that the fact that trophies contribute to ranking and your guild ranking is amazing. Also, shout out to Moon, best guild. It's funny because we actually ended up placing like 14th or 15th in the closed beta guilds, and I didn't even expect that. Everyone hit max level, everyone was socializing. So yeah, shout out to Moon. We also have the best band out there. Fuck your guild, Moon's the best. Anyways, back to this, you know, overview. Got on a little tangent there. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get into Maplestory 2's combat. Overall, I really like the combat in this game. It's fairly simple, but I think that all of the skills and all of the classes provide enough uniqueness and enough, you know, fun in their playstyle for me to eventually want to max out and play every single class that the game does have to offer. Here in the closed beta, I chose to play a priest because I really wanted to be supportive in the raids and dungeons, and I also wanted a really quick queue time because, as we all know in most other MMORPGs, that if you queue as a DPS, your dungeon queue is going to take forever, while if you queue up as a tank or healer, you get really fast queue times because that's what the game needs. I also learned that priest is a very competent class overall as well, not just supportive. I believe one of the highest PvP players was a priest, and priest is really good for, you know, soloing content and just leveling through the story, a lot of people would probably think that, oh, you know, a healer, they're probably going to do a bad job with damage and all of that stuff. And we may have a little bit less damage than all the other classes, but it really does depend on our build. And as far as the other classes in the game, I can also probably say this too, that, you know, your build really does matter at certain times for what you want to do. When I was going into raids and doing dungeons, I would set myself up to be more of a heal spec rather than for me to do damage, because I want to keep people alive, of course. The Pyros Fard boss fight, which was the only raid available in the CBT, was actually a fun and challenging thing to do. The first time that we went in, everyone got smacked and it took a really long time to clear the boss. After a couple more times, after getting some gear from the boss and really learning the mechanics, we were actually able to start doing it very easily. And I really loved it because, you know, it's kind of similar to with other MMORPGs, like kind of like WoW. It's like the first time you go into a raid, you really do have to learn all the mechanics because they are important and crucial. And I would say that this kind of does apply for a lot of the bosses and, you know, end game raids. You know, enough dungeons in the game are unique and different enough in their mechanics to where you would want to do all the dungeons and all the PvE content that the game has to offer. Some are a bit similar, but for the most part there's enough differentiating things to make you want to go through and do everything, which was also my problem with why the, you know, story leveled you through straight to level like 1 to 50, which was max, because honestly you skipped out on doing almost half of the dungeons in the dungeon finder. So hopefully they do scale back the EXP that the story gives, so then we do have to go and, you know, do those dungeons, so then we can see those dungeons, get some of the gear from them, you know, and actually enjoy that part of the game, so we just don't have to skip all the way over it. Now, as for the PvP in Maplestory 2, it's I mean, to be quite honest, it's pretty simple, and I didn't get enough really experience with it because I played healer and I mostly did raids, but I did do a couple PvP matches in game modes. There is a capture the point style like domination game mode. There's of course your 1v1s, there's a free-for-all, and there's also a fight club game mode, which I do think is really cool. My biggest problem with the PvP system though is that it pretty much is just the gear score based slugfest. The most outplaying that you're going to be doing in PvP is just by dashing and avoiding certain key skills that people have. But other than that, it really is just kind of a, you know, gear stick smack fest. And it's like whatever. I didn't even plan to, you know, play much PvP in this game because as far as most PvP and MMOs, I'm kind of over it and I stick to fighting games for my, you know, PvP enjoyment. And speaking of fighting games, Guilty Gear Xrd Revelator, which is my favorite fighting game, is actually on sale at Humble Bundle right now for 15 bucks, which is a really good deal. That, like, Revelator isn't the most recent expansion, I guess you could say, of Guilty Gear, but if you get this version of Revelator at a discounted price and then just get the other one, you will end up saving a decent amount of bucks. I'm actually not affiliated with Humble Bundle or Arc System Works in any way, although I wish I was. If any of those companies want to call me up, I would be excited as hell. But I do just want to say this to say one of my favorite fighting games is on a sale for a couple more days right now. So if you're interested and want to play with me, go ahead and pick that up. Humble Bundle actually does donate a lot of their money to charity, so yeah. And now kind of backtracking to the raids and dungeons, because I didn't really get to touch on it. One of my biggest negatives about the raids and dungeons were the reward limitations. So basically there is a weekly cap for your dungeon rewards, so, you know, until you hit this cap you will receive, you know, good drops from the dungeons and all that stuff. But when you do cap out your reward limit, which you can easily do in a day or two if you're, you know, doing a lot of dungeons and raids and you're actually trying to up your gear score, you'll run out of these rewards fairly quickly, and then you'll be kind of sitting there for the rest of the week and not even having a reason to do dungeons or raids outside of maybe from helping some friends clear them. So I would really love if they upped the limit on these rewards, or honestly just took out the reward cap 100%, because also if PvP is kind of based completely around your gear score, I would love for, you know, the dungeons to be able to constantly be able to, you know, give us a chance to get, you know, better gear. And now on to what is probably my favorite part of Maplestory 2 is the customization. In Maplestory 2 you can customize your character's avatar icon, you can post up posters all around the world of whatever pictures you kind of want. By the way, keep it, you know, mostly PG and clean, because the GMs will come for your ass if you end up putting anything too lewd or too weird anywhere in the game. And finally, you can create your own custom clothing in Maplestory 2, which is probably my most favorite part of the game, just because, you know, there's so much customization going around, and you can customize the way your character looks and your character's clothing almost to a T. I have a really fun time with, you know, graphic design. It's one of the things that I really do like to do, and personally I honestly just love making clothes for myself, for other people. Most of the time I'm just making, you know, basic skater clothes for myself, but other times I will try to leave my comfort zone and make, you know, something else like a dress or whatever. So honestly, it's one of those things that, you know, keeps me being creative in general, and I really like that about Maplestory 2. The fact that people can really, you know, make their character come to life and represent them and what they like is really, really cool. And the last thing that I'm going to touch on, but definitely not the least, is the music in Maplestory 2. So in Maplestory 2 you can actually compose and play your own music with, you know, an ensemble of, you know, all of your friends and guildmates. Like I said, me and the Moon Guild, a lot of the Moon members are, you know, really into heavy making music for Maplestory 2. And I think that the music that you can play in Maplestory 2 is just amazing, because not only does, you know, it sound really good, but at the same time it lets you pretty much remake any song or make your own songs if you want to. And I think that that's just one of the, you know, best things about Maplestory 2 is the amount of customization and the amount of self-expression that you can have in the game really shines through when, you know, you see, you know, someone playing, you know, Sonochi no Sadame from JoJo, or, you know, some Pokemon battle theme, or just anything that's really, really cool to your ears, even if it's a custom score. You know, you can really just hear the liveliness of the game while you're walking through it due to the custom music. And even the bass music in the game is amazing, because they're all, you know, remixes of the original scores from Maplestory 1. So yeah, music in this game is really, really great. It's one of the things that my guild focuses on, and it's something that I will be, you know, spending more time in when the official release comes out. So finally, getting to the end of this video, I just kind of wanted to touch on my, you know, thoughts and feedback for the Nexon team on Maplestory 2, and kind of just my final thoughts on the CBT. So kind of starting with the things that I'm really looking forward to, the top 3 things that I'm going to be doing on release of Maplestory 2 are, you know, playing music with my guild, designing clothes, and, you know, working the design shop, and of course raiding and the PvE content, because I do find it really enjoyable in Maplestory 2. As far as the pay model in Maplestory 2, of course it's a free-to-play game, and I know that on this channel and in the, you know, MMO community in general, there's a lot of uproar about, you know, pay to win, and is this fair and is that fair. And I gotta say that, you know, Maplestory 2, its main market is towards teenagers and young adults. This is a fact, because if you go into the guild tabs, you can see what each guild is meant for, like the age ranges. And the age range tabs are teenagers, people in their 20s, people in their 30s, and other. So it's very obvious to who this game is being marketed towards, especially even with some of the, you know, artwork and some of the jokes are in the game. It's definitely meant for a little bit more of a mature audience. The game's pretty PG, but there are some things that, you know, an older person would look at and be like, oh, I see what they're doing there. And they're also marketing this game towards people who would be able to spend, you know, a couple dollars a month on a game that they enjoy, you know. And also, like I said in my last Maplestory 2 video, you know, don't expect to be in the top tier of really anything, and this goes for all free-to-play games, unless you do end up putting money back into the game, because, you know, these games cost money to upkeep, and, you know, they have to pay workers who need to feed their families. So I do feel like Maplestory 2 is a very, you know, fair game, but even that's not going to stop someone from baby raging at like a $5 boost item or something. But, you know, the other things I wanted to talk about were, you know, latency and optimization. These are two things that, you know, for every game can always be, you know, further fixed upon. Sometimes there would be lag in, you know, a raid or on the server in general, so that could get ironed out. Optimization, I feel like some of the higher end graphical settings took away more resources from my higher end PC than they should have. And one of the biggest things that I want to convey to, you know, the Nexon company is that we don't want Maplestory 2 to just be like some watered down port of the KR version or, you know, the China version. We want it to be, you know, its own version and to have its own, you know, unique features and stuff, and to not just be a copy and pasted version of, you know, KMS2 or CMS2 to that, you know, it's not really tuned for, you know, the global stage. I just want to see it do its own unique things, and I think that the Nexon team is, you know, looking at our feedback, because they did send a pretty long, you know, survey for us to fill out. So I have hope that they'll listen to our feedback and really, you know, try to make Maplestory 2 as great as they possibly can. But without further ado, since I could go on forever talking about Maplestory 2, I'm going to go ahead and end this video here. Thank you guys for watching. This has been Derek, aka SkyScope. Like and subscribe if you enjoyed. I usually don't ask for that, but since some other people's contributions went into this video, I would like to, you know, see some likes or whatever. But yeah, this has been Derek, aka SkyScope. Peace out, guys.